Picture this scene. You are sitting alone in the driver's seat of your car. The engine is still quietly humming, sending a faint, mechanical vibration up through your tired legs. The garage is dark, suffocating, and smells faintly of damp concrete and old engine oil. The only source of light is the cold, blue glow of your smartphone screen reflecting off your face. Your thumb hovers over the banking application. You pull down to refresh the page. The loading circle spins for one agonizing second, and then the numbers finally update. $1 million. 7 digits. You count them over and over again to make sure your tired eyes are not playing tricks on you. 1, followed by 6 zeros. You have officially crossed the ultimate finish line of the middle class. You have reached the mythical land of the millionaires. You have spent the last 15 years of your life grinding for this exact moment. You sacrificed sleep. You swallowed your pride when your boss yelled at you. You skipped family dinners, drank cheap coffee, and saved every extra penny you could violently wring out of your paycheck. You close your eyes, lean your head back against the leather seat, and wait for it. You wait for the overwhelming wave of relief. You wait for the explosive feeling of absolute freedom to wash over your body. You wait for the heavy chains of the rat race to finally snap and fall to the floor. But nothing happens. The engine just keeps humming. The air in the car still feels heavy. There are no fireworks. There is no choir singing in the background. Instead, a cold, thick sensation of emptiness begins to slowly wrap around your throat. You look at the $1 million on the screen again, and a terrifying realization hits you. You do not feel free at all. What if I told you that the mathematical jump from $1 million to $2 million changes the fundamental fabric of your human soul far more than the jump from $2 million to $5 million? To the average person, this sounds like the rambling of a lunatic. It sounds like a basic mathematical error. The distance between 2 million and 5 million is $3 million. The distance between 1 million and 2 million is only a single million. 3 is greater than 1. Therefore, the bigger the money, the bigger the change, right? No. That is the greatest lie you have been sold. The financial system never tells you the whole truth because they need you to keep running on the wheel. Retirement is never simply a conversation about money. Wealth is not a straight line toward happiness. Depending on the exact number you reach, money stops solving old problems and starts throwing you into completely different psychological prisons. At the $1 million mark, your problem is a brutal game of survival math. At the $2 million mark, your problem transforms into a toxic psychological war against your own deeply rooted fears and greed. And at the $5 million mark, money officially stops working, leaving you stranded with the most terrifying human problem of all, the crisis of your own existence. Today, we are going to tear down the walls of all 3 financial milestones. We will look at the true income, the hidden tax traps, the fatal risks, and the dark psychological mutations that happen to your brain at each stage. By the end of this journey, you will understand exactly why the gap between 1 million and 2 million dictates the survival of your soul. It is a Monday morning. The first Monday morning after you officially declared your early retirement. You do not have to put on a stiff suit. You do not have to sit in a miserable 2-hour traffic jam. You do not have to force a fake smile for a manager you secretly despise. You pour yourself a hot cup of premium coffee, step out onto your balcony, and take a deep breath of the morning air. You tell yourself that you have made it. According to the famous 4% rule, you can safely withdraw $40,000 a year from your $1 million portfolio, add in some passive income or future Social Security, and you are easily pulling in $80,000 a year. You are making more money than a family working 80 hours a week, and you are doing absolutely nothing. Furthermore, the tax system suddenly bows down to you. Because your income comes from long-term capital gains and sits below a certain threshold, your tax bill drops to near zero. You are legally beating the system. You take another sip of your coffee. It tastes like victory. But then, your hand twitches. Almost involuntarily, your fingers reach into your pocket and pull out your phone. You open your investment portfolio app. The screen flashes bright red. The global market just dropped 2% because of some political conflict on the other side of the planet. Instantly, the coffee turns sour in your mouth. Your stomach violently ties itself into a tight knot. Your heart rate spikes. A cold sweat breaks out on the back of your neck. Welcome to the reality of the $1 million cage. You are not free. You simply traded one dictator for another. When you worked at the corporation, your boss was a human being. He could be negotiated with. He could be reasoned with. Now, your new boss is the global stock market, and the market is a cold, faceless, psychopathic machine that does not care if you need to pay for your daughter's college tuition or your hospital bills. The greatest fatal risk at this level is the sequence of returns. If the market crashes by 30% in your very first year of retirement, your entire 40-year survival plan bleeds to death. You are still forced to withdraw money to buy groceries and pay electricity bills, pulling funds out at the exact moment your assets are bleeding value. The margin of error is razor thin. One severe economic recession, and you will be forced to put your suit back on and beg for your old job back at the age of 60. And because of this terrifying, invisible threat, your psychology begins to heavily mutate. You become a prisoner of the spreadsheet. You spend your entire morning tracking expenses down to the exact penny. When you go out to a nice restaurant, you do not taste the steak. You look at the $50 bill, and your brain automatically calculates what percentage of your portfolio you just consumed. You view every single purchase as a threat to your survival. Wall Street loves this. The massive financial institutions and media networks feed on this exact fear. They pump the news with endless stories about inflation, market crashes, and economic doom. They program you to stay terrified, begging you to hand over your money to their wealth advisors, who will charge you massive management fees just to hold your hand and tell you everything will be okay. At $1 million, you successfully bought your time back. But you did not buy peace. You bought a ticking time bomb. You are physically resting on a beach, but mentally, you are running through a burning forest, terrified that the money will run out before your heartbeat does. Time is the ultimate silent killer. It does not announce its presence. It simply takes and takes until you notice the damage in the mirror. To climb from $1 million to $2 million, you had to endure another grueling decade of your life. During those 10 years, your body began to ache in places it never did before. Your hair turned gray. You missed countless bedtimes, anniversaries, and casual weekend afternoons with your family because you were obsessed with compounding your wealth. But finally, you did it. The number on the screen now reads $2 million. Mathematically, you have achieved invincibility. Following the same withdrawal rules, your portfolio effortlessly generates over $120,000 every single year without you lifting a finger. Even if the market crashes, even if inflation spikes, you have enough buffer to survive the storm. You are richer than 90% of the people walking on the street. It is the evening of your 20th wedding anniversary. You and your spouse are sitting in your quiet living room. The soft yellow light of the lamp reflects off the polished dining table. Your spouse smiles warmly, sliding a glossy travel brochure across the table. It is a 2-week vacation to Italy. It costs $3,000. It is the exact dream trip you promised to take them on back when you two were broke and living in a tiny rented apartment. You pick up the brochure. You have $2 million sitting in cash and stocks. $3,000 is practically pocket change to you. But as your eyes scan the price tag, a dark, mechanical process takes over your brain. The programming kicks in. You do not see a romantic gondola ride in Venice. You see capital escaping your grasp. Your brain instantly multiplies that $3,000 by an 8% annual return over the next 10 years. You calculate the opportunity cost. You feel a sudden, irrational surge of anxiety. You put the brochure down, frown, and complain about how airlines are price gouging and how Europe is a tourist trap. You suggest driving to a local cabin instead to save money. The warm smile on your spouse's face instantly vanishes. The light in their eyes dies out, replaced by a profound, exhausting sadness. They do not argue. They just nod quietly and walk away into the kitchen. The silence in the living room becomes deafening. You sit there, surrounded by your millions, realizing you just shattered the heart of the person you love most over a fraction of your net worth. This is the $2 million cage. This is the ultimate disease of scarcity. For 20 years, you aggressively trained your brain to view spending money as a mortal sin. You wired your nervous system to believe that every dollar saved is a shield against poverty. You built a massive psychological fortress to protect yourself. But now that the war is over, you do not know how to open the gates. You still fly in cramped economy seats. You still buy clothes from clearance racks. You still eat frozen meals. You are not doing this because you are humble. You are doing this because you are terrified. You are terrified of letting go of the control that saving money gave you. The system taught you how to accumulate wealth, but it intentionally deleted the software required to actually enjoy it, and the isolation only gets worse. Let us jump to the Thanksgiving dinner table. Your entire extended family is gathered around the roasted turkey. The plates are clinking. The wine is flowing. Your older brother, looking exhausted and stressed, starts complaining bitterly about how gas prices are destroying his budget and how his boss denied him a raise. Your cousin chimes in, venting about her crushing credit card debt. They all look at you, expecting you to join the choir of middle-class misery. but you have nothing to say. You cannot complain about the price of gas when your portfolio generated $3,000 while you were sleeping last night. So, you stay silent. And in that silence, the dynamic changes. They look at your expensive watch. They look at your calm posture. The atmosphere grows heavy with an unspoken, toxic mixture of envy and resentment. They feel like you are judging them. They feel like you no longer belong to their tribe. But the brutal irony is that you are sitting there, secretly envying them. You envy their simple, black and white struggles. They still have a clear enemy to fight, the bills. Their complaints bond them together in a warm, communal solidarity. Meanwhile, you sit at the head of the table, wealthy, secure, and entirely alienated. Because you are infected with the scarcity disease, the goalpost inevitably moves. You have $2 million, but you look at a colleague who has $4 million, and suddenly, you feel naked and exposed. You tell yourself, if I just reach 3 million, then I will truly relax. Then I will take that trip to Italy. But the trip never happens. The goalpost moves to 4 million, then 5. The greatest risk at the $2 million mark is that you will eventually die in a hospital bed, hooked up to a ventilator, leaving behind a massive pile of untouched wealth, having spent your entire life as the richest beggar in the graveyard. Let us fast forward. You survived the scarcity trap. You kept pushing, compounding, and manipulating the system until you accumulated a fortress of $5 million. It is 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. You are standing in the middle of your massive, custom-built home. The ceilings are high, the windows are floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking a perfectly manicured garden. The air conditioning hums a silent, expensive tune. You pour yourself a glass of scotch that costs $500 a bottle. You take a slow sip. You swirl the amber liquid around your tongue. It tastes like absolutely nothing. It is just liquid. At $5 million, money ceases to be a tool. It becomes an abstract concept. You can safely withdraw $200,000 every single year, regardless of market conditions, regardless of inflation. If a medical emergency happens, you write a check. If your car breaks down, you buy a new one the next day. Emergencies are no longer life-threatening events. They are minor, temporary inconveniences, easily solved by moving numbers on a screen. The tax system becomes a different game entirely. You are no longer worried about income tax. You are now deeply paranoid about estate taxes. You spend hours in sterile conference rooms with expensive lawyers, setting up complex trust funds and finding loopholes to ensure the government does not steal your wealth when you stop breathing. But because you have accumulated so much capital, you suddenly step into the spotlight. You are no longer invisible. You become a bleeding target. Your phone rings. It is another wealth manager pitching a private real estate investment trust. Your inbox is flooded with insurance agents trying to sell you premium whole-life policies. Friends you have not spoken to in a decade suddenly reach out, inviting you to coffee, eventually pivoting the conversation to a brilliant startup idea they need seed funding for. You realize with cold horror that you must now build walls to protect your money not from the market, but from the greed of human beings. Every smile feels calculated. Every handshake feels like a transaction. But the true nightmare of the $5 million cage does not come from the outside. It comes from the inside. As you stand in your silent living room, looking out at the perfect, motionless trees in your yard, a question rises from the dark depths of your mind. It is a question you have spent 40 years running away from. What is all of this for? Why am I actually here? When you were struggling to pay the mortgage, you did not have time to ask philosophical questions. The struggle was your shield. The stress of the promotion, the anxiety of the electricity bill, the desire to prove your high school bullies wrong, all of those pressures gave you a synthetic, artificial sense of purpose. The system kept you busy. You were a soldier fighting a war against poverty. But now, the war is over. You won. You conquered the financial world. You hold the trophy. And as you stare at the trophy, you realize it is completely hollow. This is the identity collapse. For your entire life, you attached your core value as a human being to your ability to generate income. You were the hard worker. You were the provider. Without the struggle, who are you? You wake up on a Tuesday morning with absolutely nothing you are required to do. No one expects anything from you. The world continues spinning, perfectly fine without your input. You try to play golf, but hitting a small white ball into a hole feels absurdly pointless. You buy a luxury sports car, but the thrill of the leather steering wheel fades after exactly 3 days. You take expensive vacations, but sitting on a beach in the Maldives feels exactly like sitting on your sofa, just with more sand and hotter weather. You suffer from the depression of abundance. When you remove all financial constraints, you strip away the illusions of life. You are left naked, staring into the terrifying, vast emptiness of your own existence. Many people at this level spiral into severe depression. Some sabotage their own marriages just to feel the thrill of chaos again. Some make incredibly stupid, reckless investments, subconsciously hoping to lose their money just so they can have a reason to wake up and fight the world again. You are forced to desperately invent an artificial purpose. You join charity boards not because you care deeply about the cause, but because you need people to look at you with respect. You start lecturing younger people about hard work because you need to feel relevant. At the $5 million mark, money has successfully solved every single problem that money can possibly solve, and it brutally abandons you, leaving you to fight a demon that no amount of cash can bribe. A lost, wandering soul. So, let us go back to the original paradox. Let us answer the mathematical riddle that makes no sense to the poor, but makes absolute, terrifying sense to the wealthy. Why is the jump from $1 million to $2 million infinitely more powerful than the jump from $2 million to $5 million? Because the journey from $1 million to $2 million takes you across the final, bleeding borderline of human survival. At $1 million, your freedom is fragile. It is conditional. It demands absolute perfection from the economy, from your health, and from your discipline. You are a wealthy prisoner. But at $2 million, you purchase the ultimate power in the modern world. The power to definitively say no to the system. You buy the absolute, unconditional guarantee that you will never have to submit to the humiliation of forced labor again, regardless of what the stock market does. It is the exact moment the chains fall off. And from 2 million to 5 million, that is nothing but the law of diminishing marginal returns. It is a grand, expensive illusion. Going from 2 million to 5 million does not change the core mechanics of your freedom. It only upgrades the texture of the cage. It buys you a business class ticket instead of an economy ticket to the exact same destination. It buys you a softer, more luxurious mattress for you to lie awake on while you suffer from insomnia. It is just more zeros on a screen. Let us loop back to the beginning. You are still sitting in your dark, quiet garage. The engine is still humming. The screen is still glowing in your hands, burning your retinas with the image of 7 digits. The financial system wants you to sit in this car, constantly calculating when you will have enough to finally be free. They want you to keep pushing the goalpost, so you keep feeding their massive economic machine with your labor, your anxiety, and your youth. But as you turn off the engine and step out into the cold air, do not ask yourself how much more money you need to accumulate. Do not ask yourself when you can finally stop working. Ask yourself the only dark, piercing question that actually matters. By the time you finally acquire enough power and wealth to buy the world, will you have successfully preserved enough of your own soul to actually live in it?